The first time Marcus heard the song, he was already far from home, camping alone at the edge of Coldwater Lake. The sun had dipped beneath the pines, and the world settled into an uneasy hush. He'd pitched his tent near the water's edge and built a small fire, just enough to keep the chill at bay. As he stirred the embers with a stick, a faint melody drifted across the glassy surface of the lake, a trembling, childlike singing, too soft to discern words. He froze, listening. The notes wavered in the night air, then receded, swallowed by the darkness. He chalked it up to imagination, perhaps a song on his headphones, replayed by the breeze. But when he returned into the forest to gather more wood, he came upon footprints in the ash, small, wet shoeprints, heading from the water's edge into the trees. They were barely 2 inches long, and no child would be out this late alone. Marcus shivered, the flame in his hand seeming inadequate against the dark. That night he slept fitfully. His dreams were haunted by a little girl with pale hair and hollow eyes, her mouth opening in a silent scream. He woke early, forgetting the dream until he stepped outside. The lake was empty. No song, no footprints. Only a fine mist hovered over the water, as though the lake itself were breathing. He shrugged it off, deciding to explore the far end of the lake before hiking out. With his backpack strapped tight, he followed a narrow trail that wound through drooping hemlocks. The forest closed around him. His headlamp cast long shadows that stretched like reaching fingers. The melody began again, faint, lilting, somewhere just beyond sight. He paused and scanned the darkness. No one was there. He called out, throat dry. "Hello?" Only silence answered. He sprinted toward the sound, pushing through brambles until he emerged into a small clearing. At its center stood an old boathouse, its grey wood bleached by sun and rot. The door hung open by a single rusty hinge. Inside, he saw nothing but blue-green water beneath the floorboards, reflecting a cracked, hanging lantern overhead. But on the far wall, scrawled in something dark and sticky, were words. "I will help you." The letters twisted in a child's handwriting. Below them, a simple drawing. A little girl's face, eyes hollow, mouth sewn shut in a horrible smile. Marcus stammered backwards. His heart hammered as he stumbled away, back into the forest. Every instinct screamed to leave, pack up and head back to the trailhead immediately. Yet an unseen force pulled him onward, as though the lake itself demanded his presence. By the time he reached the edge of the clearing, the sun had vanished entirely. Night settled like wet cloth across his shoulders. He spent what felt like hours trudging along the shore, the melody trailing him at every turn. At last, he found a small dock, its planks rotted and slick with algae. At the end of the dock lay a rowboat, tethered by a frayed rope. Marcus's breath caught. He had no idea how it had gotten here. The oars sat neatly crossed inside, as if waiting. He hesitated, then climbed in. The water was colder than he expected, seeping through the thin soles of his boots. He untied the rope, and the boat drifted away from shore, the current pulling it into the blackness. He hesitated again, but the singing began anew, just ahead, muffled as though the sound were underwater. It beckoned him. He dipped the oars in and began to row. The lake was unnaturally still, the water mirror calm, except for the ripples spreading from his strokes. Around him, tree trunks loomed like silent sentinels, their branches intertwined overhead, blotting out stars and moon. The song grew louder, clear now, a child's voice singing a lullaby, each note quivering with longing. Marcus's chest tightened. He rowed faster, adrenaline and fear propelling him forward. Eventually, the silhouette of an island emerged, a crumbling chapel nestled among stunted pines. Its steeple had collapsed, leaving jagged beams that clawed at the sky. The melody echoed from within, bouncing off shattered stained glass. Marcus secured the boat to a mossy post and stepped onto the slick planks, every nerve alight. He moved toward the entrance, where the door lay wide open, hinges long since rusted away. Inside, the floor was strewn with broken pews and shattered glass. Moonlight filtered through tattered curtains, illuminating motes of dust that drifted like restless spirits. On a battered altar, a single oil lantern burned. Its flame flickered, though no breeze stirred. Below it lay a small music box, its top carved with a dancing ballerina. The lid was cracked, the mechanism silent. Yet as Marcus approached, the ballerina began to spin, and a familiar lullaby emanated, soft as a ghost's whisper. He reached out to touch it, then recoiled. The song was distorted, slowed to half speed, each note stretched thin and ragged. He turned to leave, but froze. In the back pew, a pale form knelt, tiny shoulders shaking. A little girl, her white dress torn, her hair tangled like wet seaweed. Her head was bowed. When she looked up, her eyes were empty wells, reflecting nothing. Her lips parted, and the lullaby rolled from her throat, deeper, slower, like an echo in a cavern. Marcus's blood ran cold. He backed away until he collided with a pew. The music box shut with a snap, plunging the room into silence. The girl rose and drifted toward him, silent, arms outstretched. Instinct kicked in. Marcus turned and raced for the door, stumbling over debris. The chapel floor sagged beneath his weight. The boards groaned and snapped. He stumbled outside just as the ground gave way behind him, sending a cloud of dust into the night. He didn't stop running until he reached the boat. He flung himself in, splattering water onto the oars, and paddled furiously, pulling away from the island. The lullaby resumed, faint now, carried on the wind that swept across the lake. Marcus's breath came in ragged gasps. His muscles burned, but he kept going, determined to escape the haunting song. After what felt like an eternity, he reached the far shore. He hauled himself onto solid ground and collapsed. The boat drifted free, disappearing into the blackness. He lay there, chest heaving, until the first hints of dawn bled across the sky. Only then did he notice the small, white object clasped in his hand, the music box, no larger than his palm, its surface cold and tarnished. He tried to open it again, but the latch was jammed. The dancer within remained frozen. He dropped it on the ground. It spun over once, as if nudged by someone unseen, then came to rest facing up. On the underside, etched in faded script, were words he couldn't decipher, so faint they seemed like scratches on his skin. But as daylight strengthened, he realized they were words in his own handwriting. Find me. A scream welled in his throat. He scrambled to his feet and staggered toward his tent, the music box clattering behind him with each frantic step. Reaching for his pack, his fingers closed around something sharp. Another set of footprints, tiny and wet, impressed in the damp earth around his campsite. They led directly to his tent flap. He shuddered, heart pounding so violently that he thought it might burst from his chest. The hairs on his arms and neck stood at attention. He ripped open the tent flap and dove inside, fumbling for his flashlight. Once its beam flickered on, he shone it around the canvas interior. Everything lay overturned, his stove upended, his supplies strewn across the floor. And on the pillow beside him, there, propped against his head, was the music box. Its lid was wide open and empty. The ballerina inside was gone. He fled the campsite, abandoning equipment, jacket, and food. Branches whipped his face as he hurtled toward the forest edge. Only when he reached the car, engine still warm, did he risk looking back. The tent lay silent. No footprints approached. The lake was calm, its surface unbroken. But high on the hill behind the campsite, among the pines, he thought he saw a pale shape, a small figure, standing where no trail led, watching him go. Marcus didn't stop driving until he reached his apartment in the city. He locked every door and window, dropped the music box into a cardboard carton, and shoved it into a closet. At night, though, he still heard the lullaby, soft and distant, like a memory half remembered. He woke in cold sweats, certain he saw a pale face at the foot of his bed, or heard the clicking of the ballerina's carousel in the empty hallway. Finally, unable to endure another sleepless night, he retrieved the box and carried it down to the river that ran through town. He waded to the center and tossed it into the current. The music box floated for a moment, caught in the moonlight, before sinking beneath the water. As it vanished, the lullaby cut off mid-note, replaced by an echoing silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Marcus turned away and walked home. The riverbank was still. No footprints marked his path. Yet, as he passed beneath a street lamp, he glimpsed a small shadow at the edge of his vision, pale hair drifting on the breeze, empty eyes watching from across the water. He blinked, and it was gone. That night he lay in bed and slept at last. But when he woke, folded neatly on his bedside table, was the music box, its lid cracked open, the ballerina still. And as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Marcus heard the faintest whisper, like a child calling from somewhere just beyond sight. "Help me."